Hello and welcome to WASH Talks, organized for the biannual steering committee for the Water Supply and Sanitation Collaborative Council. My name is Eileen Palmer, and over the next 2 days we will be interviewing experts in the field and members of the WSSCC family. I'm very pleased to have with me again our chair of the steering committee for WSSCC, Ms. Hind Khatib-Othman, and also Johan Sundberg from the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency. Welcome to you both and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
My first question over to you, Hind. It's lovely to have you back on our WASH Talks, and I know you've been very busy leading up to our steering committee. Just quickly, how is it going so far?
Well, we just started today. Actually, I started yesterday with the governance committee, but obviously in the lead to the meeting, we have been very busy together with the secretariat to prepare elements of what can be discussed in terms of strategic direction for the council for the coming 5 years. We had a set of questions to make sure that we get the right inputs from the steering committee, and I think the first session I was very happy with. There was a strong engagement from all the steering committee members, so there is a little bit of ownership of how we're going to make the council a stronger organization, a stronger influencer in the water and sanitation field. So far I'm happy. So we're hoping that by Friday I will be equally happy.
Us as well, I believe.
Yes.
And the next question over to you, Johan. A warm welcome to you. I'd like to follow up on this year's Stockholm World Water Week. And as we see in the conclusions report that came out earlier this year, there was over 4,000 participants from over 130 countries, 277 sessions to choose from. This is a record for the Stockholm World Water Week. What do you think contributed to the successes?
I think that the theme, hit an inner string in the potential participants and those who came, because I think that people has realized that it's impossible to reach the Agenda 2030 goal, universal access for whatever the 17 SDG objectives and goals. So I think that it's necessary for everyone to actually engage in the poverty eradication. And what struck me at the open plenary during the World Water Week was that there was so many of new first-time participants, and mostly of younger persons. So I think this is actually has taken up the importance of having water and also sanitation from our part as a very important theme to fight poverty, because sanitation and water, safe sanitation and hygiene is really important for people's survival and for a better health, for the universal health access. So I think that's my conclusion, that
Yes.
the water theme and sanitation theme has come higher up on the political agenda and development agenda on international level as well.
Right. Thank you. Back to you, Hind. Until June this year, you were managing director at the Gavi Alliance, and you have extensive experience in the health sector. In this way, you could be seen for WSSCC as a bridge between health and sanitation. Having said that, what opportunity do you see for WSSCC as we move towards a new strategy?
Actually, huge opportunity, because you will never achieve universal health coverage if we don't really tackle the issue of sanitation. You just take the level of mortality and morbidity among children under the age of 5 from diarrhea and respiratory infections. And these two alone, which actually comprise also 50% of all morbidity and mortality of children under the age of 5, they're directly related to sanitation and hygiene. So, if we speak about that alone, and if we show the right linkages, now the health society is really very busy in making sure that there is a containment to outbreaks, disease outbreaks. And if we look at the disease outbreaks we're struggling from, they are also highly impacted by proper sanitation. What are we talking about? We're talking about outbreaks in cholera, outbreaks in yellow fever. And these are a major two diseases that actually, if we do our work properly, then we should be able to help the global community. I mean, I'm looking at it now as being the chair of the steering committee for the council. Is also how do I talk to the donors who are investing in health? Because one way to safeguard their investments is to continue investing in sanitation to allow the council and the partners who are working in the sector to really reach the last mile and to live up to the agenda of leaving no one behind. So I'm a strong believer that health and sanitation have to come together. And I'm a strong believer that at least during my time at the council, to make sure that we take sanitation, elevate it, take it out of its isolation, and make sure it connects to other SDGs, and people understand its contribution to the achievement of other SDGs. So, yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Moving back to Johan, just one final question on the conclusions paper. It also said that inclusion is key to addressing today's challenges. Could you just elaborate on that for us?
Well, I think it's key to fight poverty and to provide access to water and sanitation for all. But I also think it's broader, the inclusivity concept, as it goes to the UN resolution on the water and sanitation as a human right. It also brings into the UN resolution on having a clean environment, for people to live in a clean environment. It's also on the resolution on the right to food, which boils down to the proper nutrition for small children in order for them to grow. It also boils down to the concept of democracy, the right and freedom to speech, to participate and create political party, freedom for religious beliefs, and as well as expressing your sexuality. So I think it's really you have to look at it not just in terms of water, but it's actually to the well-being of people. That is the inclusion and access to all, to not only specific like water and sanitation, but also to the other, how do you say, the more ethical and moral aspects of what is human well-being.
Right, thank you. And Hind, over to you. You've been a chair now with us for 1 year. Looking back on the first year, can you share some of the highlights?
The first year has been quite exciting for me. First of all, it brought me into a sector that I have been away from for a long time. I think the main highlights is really how do we draw on the strengths of the council and scale up in the implementation. So that was the first challenge in bringing in results. We have seen at least the human resources grow, in which we had a number of jobs filled. We have seen a higher visibility of the council, even now when I go up. So thanks to also you and the efforts you have made over the year in making sure that we put it much more in the center of the response of the sector. I hear a lot of more positive feedback that yes, you're really assuming a role, and I hope that we can build on that, build on the visibility we created to really also build on the success of the council so far, utilize its human resources to the utmost, think into the future and be bold about our ambition, because leaving no one behind, we cannot be shy about it. So I'm very excited that actually also that the Secretariat staff, Sue and her team, believe in being bold with us. We all believe in the mission. So I think the highlights has been really getting it up there, having a leadership team and human resources that have been built and creating the visibility it required, and now moving to the future with a new strategy and much higher resources, hopefully, financial resources.
Yes, I hope so.
Yeah.
Building upon that, I'd like to talk about next year's World Water Week theme. It's water and climate change, accelerating action. It's a little too early to tell, but what do you expect next year from the Water Week?
Well, excuse me. Climate change, that's something that affects us all. And my worry is that with the increasing climate change effects, there will be a lot more risks for conflict between countries, within countries, for getting access to clean water, because a lot of water is getting more and more polluted, which makes it more and more difficult for people to use, and also for industries to use. And I think my hope is that there will be a message from the World Water Week, strong message that can make a dent, a mark in the international community dealing with climate change, that this is an issue that really has to be taken seriously. Time is running out, and as Greta Thunberg has said, you have politicians, global leaders, multinational company leaders have to take on seriously the message from the scientific world dealing with and working with the issues and the problems with climate change. It has to be taken seriously, and it has to be responded to in order to actually build safeguards before to reduce the carbon dioxide emissions to the atmosphere before everything is too late, before we've reached the 2+ whatever rise in temperature, which would be a disaster. So I think it's really, really important. Yeah. It will create immense problems for already poor people who are already now facing extreme droughts, extreme fires, extreme floodings. And the costs for that is immense for the countries, the poor countries already now. And it will cost a lot to also the developed countries in terms of counteracting on our own, like in Sweden, to counteract increased raise of sea level surface. The small countries in the Pacific, what will happen to them when you have a 2 meters rise of sea level? That would imply a lot more of migration of people, which is already creating a problem to Europe, for example, or to the developed world, who doesn't really want to take responsibility for these things.
I can see it's going to be a good week next year. Yeah, thank you. And final question over to you, Hind, and then back to Johan. Going forward, can you share your vision with us? How do you see yourself using your chair role to move the organization forward?
My vision is really for us to be bold and to have a higher ambition, and to really live up to the words we are saying in our documents, because the agenda is a big agenda. So far I think the Council has been driven by whatever financing has been given to it by its donor. I believe this time we really have to speak about the gap and what is needed to be addressed, and how much money we need, realizing that we're not the only player in the sector, and shape up our identity to be able to bring additional resources to the sector. It doesn't mean that the Council is going to be the only vehicle for implementation, but it's going to be an important vehicle to put out the money there and build the required alliances and partnerships to really, on the advocacy aspect, on the implementation aspect. I feel like, we also have to be in hard commodities, in making sure that we reach those families, because, when we speak about leaving no one behind, it means that families will have to prioritize between having a proper sanitation service against education, maybe against food, putting food on the table, and we should not put the families in such choices. So what is our role in making sure that we think in creative ways? Who are the people that we need to have around the table? What governance structures we need to bring also blended financing to the organization? So my ambition is big. I hope that I will be served by it. There is no formula that guarantees success to this ambition, but I think if we don't, I always believe in something like if you don't knock at the door, you will never hear the answer. So I'm hoping that we'll knock at the door and make sure that we really connect sanitation to many other things that are now becoming high priority on the agenda of donors, such as climate change and environment, such as education, such as women empowerment. I think there is, a brand that we have not used as well, which is the whole menstrual health and hygiene. That, how do we bring it towards women empowerment and towards sexual reproductive health of adolescent girls. So there are a lot of, I have a lot, and I hope that I will be abled, obviously, by the Secretariat, by the Steering Committee, that we can go out there and make it a better organization and a stronger organization for the sector.
Excellent, thank you. And Johan, as a member of our steering committee, what message do you have to Hind and to all of us here at WSSCC?
I can't more than support what Hind has just said, and I think it's good to be bold. From Sida's point of view, we endorse very much the work that WSSCC and Council has been doing through the Global Sanitation Fund and the menstrual hygiene work and the equity and leave no one behind, the LGTBI work you've been doing. Continue with that, I think. I think it's good to be bold. You have to have ambitions. And I think that's the message you have to work hard on, to actually reach out to the donors. And I think also, I mean, increased cooperation with other actors, UNICEF, World Bank, Plan International, WaterAid, etc., and to see where are the gaps in these organizations where you actually can fill the role. So I think working with the last mile, with the most vulnerable, that's something which is very much in line with what Sida is thinking and would like to support.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you both of you very much for speaking on WASH Talks today. Next up, we will have we'll continue our WASH Talks with Monique Van Het and James Wicken.
Excellent. We thank you.
Thank you very much.
Perfect.
Please,
Thank
bon
you
appetit.
so